A very warm welcome to the new episode of Incan Insights. This is your host, Sumit Sarma Samir. This is a Nepal based podcast. And if you are interested listening to the thought leaders from around the world, please subscribe to my channel. I'm extremely pleased to welcome Lakshmi M Puri in my show today. Ms. Puri is a former Assistant Secretary General at the United Nations and the former Deputy Executive Director of UN Women, Director in UN Conference on Trade and Development, and at the Office of High Representative for Least Developed Countries. Prior to her 15-year stint at the United Nations, she served as an Indian diplomat for 28 years. She was appointed India's ambassador to Hungary in 1999 and served there until 2002, while also accredited to Bosnia and Herzegovina. At the Ministry of External Affairs headquarters in Delhi, she served as the Undersecretary on the Japan and Korea desk and later as Undersecretary on the Pakistan desk. She also served as the Joint Secretary, Economic Division and Multilateral Economic Relations, where she was active in negotiating India's many bilateral and multilateral economic diplomacy initiatives. These days, however, she is more known due to her debut novel, Swallowing the Sun, which has won much critical acclaim as an epic saga, an eternal classic, most powerful debut novel by an Indian writer in the 21st century. It's also become a bestseller with thousands of copies sold in record time. And I have a copy of the book with me, and I'm very extremely pleased that I could get this copy from the author herself. And it's such a pleasure to welcome Ms. Puri in my show. Thank you so much for your time, Ms. Puri.
It's a pleasure to be in conversation with you, Sumitji, and also to reach out to readers and young people in particular of Nepal.
Thank you. Ms. Puri, I know that you have a very strong relations with Nepal and you stayed here for 7 years. For my audience, can you please tell us when this was?
Absolutely. I spent 7 formative years of my childhood in Nepal, in Kathmandu, because my father was the legal advisor. The Indian Cooperation Mission had a legal advisor, and my father was the legal advisor to His Majesty King Tribhuvan and later King Mahindra. And he drafted the first constitution of Nepal. One would say the first constitution of Nepal. And also he had gone just for 2 years, but it kept getting extended because he was so popular and they wanted his services to continue. So we stayed on for 7 years. And for all those years, I knew only Nepali. I didn't know Hindi. Nice. So I have had quite a Nepalese background, many relatives who are Nepalese or who married into Nepalese families. My own eldest sister is a specialist. She's a professor of political. She was a professor of political science, and she has written a book on monarchy in Nepal. So, yes, Kusum Shrestha.
Right.
The Tribhuvan era. To those linkages all the time in my different avataras, including when I was with UN Women, when I was with LDC, Office of the High Representative. In fact, we work very closely with the Nepalese delegation because Nepal always takes leadership on least developed country issues. So it has been a continuing, shall I say, affinity and relationship that I have had with Nepal. And I'm so happy again to reconnect through you with the Nepalese people.
Thank you. And I'm sure you may not remember any places as such where you're staying at this point of time.
No, I remember very vividly.
Oh, you do? Oh, wow.
We were staying in Jwalakhel in it was a Rana Palace.
Right.
And we were staying at the National Academy of what is now the National Academy of Administration.
Right. The moment you said Jawlakhel, I mean, I can surely say that you do.
Yes. So it was part of a palace that we were staying in.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yes.
Ms. Puri, I'm so happy this time around to talk about this book, which has already become a national bestseller, "The Saluting the Sun." So, what inspired you to write "Saluting the Sun," and why did you choose the title?
So the other connection I must mention and the inspiration for the book are my
Right.
parents. Their extraordinary life, what they were and what they contributed to India and in it throughout their life. So I wanted to write a ode to them,
Hmm.
but I didn't want it to be a biography.
Right.
And because biographies only speak to the intellect, to the head,
Mhm.
but I also wanted to go beyond the intellect. I wanted to touch hearts. I wanted to touch the soul. And that's why I wrote this novel.
Right.
So they are the ones who inspired this. Uh, and then, you know, my imagination took wing and I created a whole world and characters who came to me, the epiphanies, the memories, the stories they had told us as we
Right.
grew up, and how we interpret those stories now after all these years, and their love letters. My father's love letters, 148 love letters that I found around 1999. They were written in 19 between 1929 and 1932 when they were
Mhm.
separated.
Right.
So that was a treasure trove of material, but not only material. It was an inspiration, the trigger for me to really get down
Mhm.
and something that had been swirling within me, the desire to write this story which had never been told before.
Right.
And I knew it was an epic story which had never been told before. And the stories within stories of other characters around them, which then I spun. But the kernel was their story.
Mhm.
So that's how this book came about. And I first started writing in Budapest when I was ambassador there. I wrote
Yes.
100 pages and I had an outline which was going to be developed further of three generations: my mother's generation, my generation, and my elder daughter's generation, who went to the US as a 16-year-old and made her life there. So I
Right.
wanted to cover these three generations of women, and I think I was too daunted by the task. So and also I got busy with my work, and I found that I cannot give it that single-minded devotion that I think a novel needed.
Right.
Um, so I got distracted, I got daunted, and it took another 20 years, and the
My
coming
gosh.
of COVID, and my return to India
Right.
to really finish that project. And so during COVID time, I sat down, and from morning till evening, 8 to 10 hours, I would sit and write. And I wrote my original draft of 270,000 words on my iPhone, essentially on my iPhone. I use
Wow.
the iPad sometimes.
Right.
Uh, and I took out sometimes, very rarely, but I took out printouts to see how does it look,
Mhm.
but and how does it feel.
Yeah.
But essentially, it was written on the iPhone. So I finished it in 1 year. So I was quite quick once I
Right.
started.
Mhm.
And also, I think there was that feeling of, I had to do it. This was a labor of love wanting to be done.
Mhm.
And there was during COVID times, we all remember how death was beckoning us every day. And
Right.
we were not sure that we will get up alive the next day. And touchwood, we got off unscathed through it all. But there was that sense of mortality. And so I knew that it was now or never.
Yeah.
That's how Swallowing the Sun came about and got written. And after that, of course, the process of taking it to different publishers, shortening it to its present form of 150,000 words, and someone like a great legendary editor and publisher and writer like David Davidar himself believing in the project was the turning point. And then here we are with the book. Why
Right.
Swallowing the Sun?
Title,
Why
yeah.
title?
Yeah.
Well, I'm very mystically and spiritually inclined, and I got an epiphany. Uh, Muktabai, Saint Muktabai, a teenage woman saint. She died when she was barely 18,
Okay.
but she was a very powerful uh, Varkari saint from Maharashtra. She is now
Okay.
worshipped as Adi Shakti and Chandi Devi. So, and there are temples in her name. So she came to me, and I had heard this abhang from my mother, who was, both my parents were very poetically inclined, very literary in their very existence was very literary. Their dialogues, the way they evoked poetry, mythology, epics, and in 3 languages.
Wow.
Sanskrit, Marathi, and English. So, she had told me about Muktabai, and I had read her verses. And then, as I was writing, I was playing around with various titles.
Right.
Then this she came to me, almost as a dream, and said, "No, you must use this abhang of mine as the leitmotif for your novel." So that's how this came about. And the abhanga goes, Mungi udali akashi, tine gille suryashi, thor navlav zhala, panz putra prasavla, binsu patala si jai, shesh matha bandi pai. Mashi vyali, ghar zhali, dekhoni buktai hasli. So the ant, the little ant, she flies into the sky. She swallows the sun. Another miracle, a barren woman gives birth to a son. The scorpion burrows down to the nether realms, and the snake king Shesha bows his head at its feet. The housefly begets a hawk. Muktabai sees all, Muktabai laughs. So this surreal poem is about the intersection of faith, of daring, and of perseverance to attain the impossible, the unattainable. That anyone can do that if you have faith, if you dare, and if you persist. So all my characters, so this is a theme that runs through, or rather the thread that runs through all the themes. And what are the themes? I mean, and what is this novel about? This novel is a coming of age story. So how, a child, a girl in this case, but also a young man, that is Guru, who's modeled after my father, how they grow up and come of age and evolve with this daring, this faith in themselves,
Right.
and wanting to do the impossible, rising above their circumstances. So that is one part of it. The other part of it, related to the coming of age, is how young people of that time uh, were so, uh, magically touched by this desire to contribute to the freedom movement at a time when it seemed so impossible to
Right.
throw out the oppressor, isn't it? The British
Exactly.
rule at that time seemed so unconquerable, and yet they wanted to be part of it, they wanted to do something. And it was also a great time of civilizational reawakening. They were fired by this great civilizational reawakening, the confidence, sudden surge of confidence that happened at this time, the cultural efflorescence. Much is, I'm sure Nepal is familiar with this. There is much, because there has been a connection with Bengal. I know
Absolutely.
Bengal and Bihar and UP. But not enough is known even in the rest of India and outside, let alone outside, because Indians writing in English, not much is known about the Marathi cultural efflorescence at that time, which
True.
became the sole force also feeding into the freedom movement and young people's participation in how it inspired them, whether it was theater, whether it was literature, whether it was poetry. So all
Right.
of it is brought into this. And then the other, so this Muktabai Zabhan also covers all of that,
Right.
always that self-realization as a
Right.
theme. And then the other aspect is this: it is a grand love story, epic love story in its own.
Right.
And many people have pointed out that such a grand romance has not been written in recent times and has been very well received by readers. But it's also, it seemed so unattainable at some point
Yeah.
of time.
Yeah.
And the protagonists have to sacrifice so much, endure to reach their destinations. So that is the other aspect. And then there are many subplots and sub themes which again feed into this. But one big aspect which I would like to highlight is, as I said, the freedom movement itself and the big actors like Mahatma Gandhi
Right.
themselves were, and I've described in the novel how Malti goes to meet him. A lot of these people are recreated and, have cameo roles in the novel, as you will read and see. And it's very interesting interaction between my characters and these great leaders of the time: Annie Besant, then Mahatma Gandhi, Madan Mohan Malviya. So and other cultural personalities like Mama Varerkar, who's a great playwright and a revolutionary playwright, and even Bal Gandharva. So,
Right.
historical figure. So, for these people also to want to prevail in very challenging circumstances, it was a leap of faith.
Right.
And the whole novel is about the indomitable, indestructible human spirit prevailing. So let me read out a passage when Malti, who is come, remember, from a village in Ratnagiri, a young girl,
Right.
she has avoided, or she has dodged, thanks to her father uh, and her mother dying very early. She's dodged child marriage. She's gone on to pass brilliantly from school at orphanage school in Indore. And then she has gone on to be one of the pioneering graduate students at Elphinstone College, no less, along with other men students. So, and she is really also strongly asserting her identity. She is participating in the freedom movement. And then suddenly some shocks happen, and she's afraid that she will lose this privilege. So I
Right.
want to read out this passage where Malti and Kamla had come to believe that they were living in Bombay at a time when everything was being turned inside out and upside down, the improbable Muktabai way. It was as if the small, sweet Elchi bananas grew with their ivory colored, fragrant, sweet, pulpy flesh outside, enveloping their thin, yellow, blotchy skin inside. It was as if the Indian tiger had come out of the forest and sat supping with the brown coolies at the starched linen covered table in the Gymkhana Club of Bombay, being
Right.
served by British sahibs in red and white uniforms, doubling over to please the natives. It was as if the frail Indian ascetic, with nothing but the sword of his soul force, the shield of his khadi loincloth, and the cannon fire of the Indian masses, was breaching the iron and stone battlements of the great British Empire, riding on the waves of his tremulous voice. They cherished their freedom to become part of this miracle making, even if, as a tiny particle, they did not want to lose that privilege.
Right. Very, very inspiring. Very inspiring. If we, Ms. Puri, that we in Nepal are much known or exposed to some of the histories that's pretty close, as you rightly pointed out, to the Bengal, to Bihar, and that's also because many Nepali leaders contributed to the Indian freedom movement. They literally participated. They were into the jails, and that's how we came to know about those. And good that you brought from the Marathi side of it. Now we are sort of came to
Yes.
learn about that as well. But I was kind of interested to know, when did all this started? Your interest in literature as such?
Well, as I said, my parents, it's my upbringing. But also, you see, I was in a very unique position as their daughter, because I was born to them when they were 45.
Right.
And so they represented an era which was 2 generations almost removed from me.
Right.
And I found it very fascinating. And I always felt that a special connect. I felt as if I was living in that era through them, through their eyes, through their stories. And I wanted to bring it to the present, to my generation and to the younger generation. But also I felt very inspired by their very literary, environment. So that's why many people have commented on how the book is so richly drawing upon literature of all kinds.
Right.
So of Sanskrit literature, Kalidas and Meghdutam, Shakuntala, Abhigyan Shakuntalam is drawing upon a number of English writers and poets like Charles Dickens and E.M. Foster and Tennyson, and Pilgrim's Progress by Christian. So all of these, this formed a kind of the backdrop and something that was part of my being, and I had to write at some point. As I told you, the stories were also wanting to be written. So that's how it came about. And
कसैले मुस्कुराएर हेर्नुपर्छ माया नै बसे जस्तो ठान्छौँ कसैको पहिरन देख्न साथ यस्तो र उस्तो भन्न थाल्छौँ विदेश भन्न साथ पैसाको बोट जस्तो सस्तो पाउन साथ केही न केही खोट जस्तो हामीलाई धारणा बनाउन त कसले पो रोक्छ र यसै गरी हाम्रो बारेमा पनि यहाँहरूले केही धारणा बनाउँदै हुनुहुन्छ वा बनाइसक्नु भएको छ भने पनि कृपया पहिला हामी कहाँ आउनुहोस्, जहाँ छ अत्याधुनिक ब्याङ्किङ, जहाँ छन् युवा जनशक्ति, जो आफैमा सबल र सफल ब्याङ्क हो र जसको पहुँच सुगमदेखि दुर्गमसम्म छ। त्यसपछि सेवा सुविधा बारे थाहा पाउनुहोस् अनि बल्ल धारणा बनाउनुहोस्। राष्ट्रिय वाणिज्य ब्याङ्क, तपाईको आफ्नै ब्याङ्क, आफ्नो भनेको आफ्नै हुन्छ।
Also, I was quite struck by, as you rightly pointed out right now, is that it's a huge canvas, isn't it? It's about Indian freedom struggle, a feminist statement, and moreover is trying to instill a faith that anything is possible.
Yes.
How difficult was it for you to sort of comprehend all this and weave all this together?
Well, I must say something about the feminist statement that you mentioned, because I have outlined, I think, the other parts already.
Yeah.
Once I had the meta theme in place and the kernel of the story that was inspired by my parents, I built a whole world around it, the characters around it, and the themes, they came together.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes effortlessly, sometimes I had to then strengthen some parts and, de-emphasize certain other parts. That always happens in the chiseling. It's like sculpting a statue to perfection. So that kept happening. But I think the original piece itself was, came together quite fortuitously and happily for me. Feminist part. You see, my parents, again, I come back to them. They were feminists. Mm-hmm. And I believe that it's not enough for a woman to be feminist. Men also have to be he, for, she. When I was with UN Women, and as you said, I was the founding Assistant Secretary General and Deputy Executive Director of UN Women, and I built up that organization ground up. So that was like the climatic moment for me as a feminist, to be doing this nurturing this and taking forward this most important project for humanity in this century, and the unfinished project for humanity in this century. And I learned one thing, that whatever it is that we attempt to do as a global organization, as a government, at the national level, at the local level, storytelling is a very, very important part of advocacy, movement building, and mindset change, which are so essential for creating the new normal of gender equality and women's empowerment.
True.
So that's why when I got the first opportunity, it had to have, and also the woman that I was inspired by, my mother, was a feminist, and my father was a feminist, and they empowered me, and I wanted that through this book, I inspire both women and men to be feminists. But of course, it's not a preachy book, and it's not, didactic in the sense that but it is very much, its heart is very much about women's empowerment and self-realization of women and their equal rights and their right to be anything they want to be and can be. So that is something which is very much imbued, this novel is imbued with. And also, again, women's participation in the freedom movement. It's an unsung, this is also about the unsung heroes of the freedom movement. And heroes of the freedom.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So it was very much. It was actually it melded quite well one into the other. The feminist, the love story, and if you look at the love story itself,
Right.
I have brought out the feminist in Guru, the lover, and later the husband, who deifies her and puts her on a pedestal. And there is a poem which I have composed, which he presents to her
Right.
after declaring his love for her. He presents to her to assure her that he will forever be her worshipper.
Right.
So he says, if I may read
Please.
some parts of this poem, Madhumalti, you are the goddess installed in my temple's sanctum sanctorum. To the exhilarating beats of celestial drums, my fevered chanting and joyous limpid songs. You accept me as your devotee, and I pledge my whole life to you. My
Wow.
dreams, dreamt and undreamt, for you to see and turn into miracles. And then he goes on to say, I will in turn shield you from non-believers in your divinity.
Right.
I want you to ponder on that thought. We will be iconoclasts in other ways too. Show them we can be and do anything. And then
Right.
he ends with this very uplifting message. My Pancha Pran, the 5 vital life forces drawn from cosmic springs, I consecrate to you, my Devi. Let the spirit divine and merge our soul, my soul with yours, and our bodies entwine. O Madhumalti, let the beguiling veil of Maya once and for all be pierced and fall between the manifest and the truth, between the striving and the attainment, between the worshipper and the worshipped, between me and you.
Wow.
This becomes a kind of, and then later he presents this in a birch bark, he written on birch bark paper, and he presents it to her, and she says, this is your promise to me. This is your oath of allegiance to me, okay, as a worshipper.
Right.
And then when she feels later on in life, when she
Right.
feels that he's straying from this, she confronts him and says, you've forgotten to be a worshipper. He protests and he says, no, I still consider you my goddess.
Right.
She then turns around and says that I am a goddess, not because you made me so.
Wow.
I am a goddess because of who I am and what I have done for you. So
Great.
this kind of reaffirmation and that Ardhanarishwar, the man-woman relationship exploration, what
Right.
is love, that elusive thing called love, all of that also revolves around some of this idea of attaining the unattainable and keeping faith.
Right. Right. Ms. Puri, you just enjoying the fruits and the success of this work right now. I'm not sure if it's too early to ask, but have you already started thinking and working on the new project?
Well, I want to, as you said, I want to enjoy the fruits. More than that, I want this work of mine to reach as many people as possible in India, in South Asia, certainly in Nepal. And
Sure.
that means I want to have it translated in as many languages as possible here in South Asia.
Mm.
Then I also want readers in the world to read it, and therefore I'm looking at getting it published in the US UK market, as well as having translations in Spanish and French, certainly
Nice.
these two languages, and Japanese, because I've studied Japanese myself and I've been
Oh,
posted
wow.
there. I love Japan. So, these are the countries that I also want to take my novel to. So this is something that will take up much of my attention in the next few
Right.
months. But
Right.
yes, I'm looking at two different projects, possibly a sequel to this. And in the
Right.
sequel, Nepal will certainly feature. That I can
Oh,
promise.
wow.
And yes, that's
Interesting.
yes. And
Right.
the other project is more UN related,
Right.
some fiction about my experiences, from inspired by my experiences in the human interactions in the UN.
Right.
So,
Right.
so these are two
Right.
projects that are floating around in my mind, but not yet taken concrete shape.
In your experience, what do you find most fulfilling about being a writer, Miss Puri?
So, what is most fulfilling about being a writer is that you get to play God for a change. Uh, because, or a puppeteer, great puppeteer, because there are
Right.
these. I have used the imagery of a puppeteer much. In fact, my original title was Dancing with the Puppeteer.
Right.
So that is something that gives me great pleasure,
Mm.
because you are in control. You are engaging in an act of creation, uh, and of by association, you are bringing in matrices of thought and domain and ideas which are completely unrelated, and you're bringing it all together, and that alchemy is
Right.
is so intoxicating. It's beautiful. It's the act of creation is creativity itself is so wonderful. So I feel very fulfilled in that. And also the fact this first novel of mine um, is so much heartfelt, so much of a spiritual experience as well for me. It's
Yeah.
been a spiritual journey as much as it has been one of love,
Right.
fulfilled.
Right.
And
It's
my
very close
children,
to your heart, I think.
yes, it's very close to my heart. So if you will permit me, I want to also bring to you. I know I've perhaps brought some poetry which I have written, but a lot of poetry which I have used is, as I said, from Sanskrit and
Yeah.
also Marathi.
Yeah.
Marathi poetry at that time, it was, as I said, the Renaissance, poetic Renaissance, also literary Renaissance, theater.
Mhm.
And so I would very much like to recite some of the poetry, if you
Oh,
permit
yes,
me,
please go ahead.
in original Marathi. And
Mhm.
I think a lot of it you will understand, because there are Sanskrit words and words that are common in Hindi and Nepali also, I think.
Right.
But I will also translate.
Please.
So there is one poem which I have, I've woven these poems into the waft and weft of the novel, and to really uh, illuminate, the truth, illuminate the emotions, bring forth the emotions, and highlight um, aspects which otherwise, remain camouflaged
Mhm.
in prose.
Right.
So this is a poem which he writes on the sand,
Mhm.
and they are sitting at sunset. They are sitting on the sand, and he proposes to her, writes this poem on the ground, and then takes her hand and makes her write on
Oh,
overwrite it, and also recites. So this
okay.
is the And this, my father used to recite one poem every evening to us, whenever
Oh,
he could,
wow.
yes. And he
Mm.
had a different tune, and he had a book of poems which he has consecrated to me. First he did it to Malti, then he gave it to me.
Later on, your turn came.
1983. So he, he had a different tune for every poem.
Right.
So this was a poem called Prem Lake, and this is in the first page of this book,
Yeah.
Prem Lake by Balkavi. So it says, मेघांचे करि भूर्जपत्र धरुनी अस्तांचली प्रत्यहि स्वर्गीचे नवलेख कुमकुम रसे ती सांध्य देवी लिही रात्री शांत गभीर अंबुनिधीच्या आनील पृष्ठावरी लज्जा लेखली विकंपित करे ती तारका सुंदरी सारे ते मग लेख तुच्छ गमती चित्ताची आलोचनी तीचा अक्षय लेख एकच उभा मी मग्न पारायणी.
Wow.
So
I didn't understand it, but I could feel it.
yeah. But some words, if you listen carefully,
Yeah.
Sandhya Devi,
Yeah. Yeah. Few words. Yeah. Of course. Yeah.
Vikampita Kare, Lajja Lekh.
Yeah.
So there are many words, I'm sure, which are,
Yeah.
relatable.
For sure, yeah.
Holding the birch bark of clouds in her hand, the glorious sunset as a perennial witness grand, her pen dipped in the red sap of my love infinite, the evening goddess writes a new missive exquisite. With enchanting shyness, her cheeks suffused, my beloved rests her lotus head on my chest bemused. She creates our love epistles mystique in the poetic language of her breaths unique.
Wow.
All those other lyrical outpourings magnificent in my heart's eyes seem so trivial and insignificant. For I am the sole, rapt, and discerning reader, vernal, in the universe of this, my beloved's love letter eternal.
Wow.
So this is, and then there are poems that are invoked, that are sung and recited by my characters to reflect patriotism. Vadude tara gruha cha bhintichi unchi kiti manmana nahi shiti. So Madhav Julia. So different poems, the great poets of that time, or to the fisherman's love song, आला खुशीत समिंदर त्याला नाही धीर होडीला देईना ठरू होडीला देईना ठरू ग सजणे होडीला बघतो धरू. So this is the romance of the waves with the little boat.
What I'm enjoying, Miss Puri, right now is different facets of your personality itself now.
So these are the many gems, poetic gems, transliterations that are embedded in this novel, and I hope my readers will enjoy reading both the original to the extent that they can understand, but also the transliteration.
Right. Any advice to new upcoming young writers?
Well, I'm humble enough to say that with just one novel, debut novel that has been launched, I'm not in that kind of a situation to give advice, but of course I can share my experience, which I have already shared in a way, which is that there is a story. Those who are novelists, I've written other books which are non-fiction. I've contributed to other non-fiction books, but I'm now talking about novelists. There is, I believe, a story waiting to be told in all of us.
Yeah.
And if you feel that it has to be told, if you get that urge, that inspiration, you should go forth with it, and don't wait for 20 years like I did. Don't get distracted by life. Life happens, stuff happens with work, with family, get distracted. And in fact, it was my husband and my sister and brother-in-law, who, by the way, my sister worked very closely with me in, translating, and also translating the letters and transcribing the letters, because these were, falling apart, and they were very faint. So they needed to be transcribed first, then translated in the case where they were in Marathi. Most of them are in beautiful English, but some of them were in Marathi. So, I think writers need to, get over that temptation to put off, put off getting down to write. So get down to write. And also, I think what is important, as I have found, is to do good research. Some of it will be beforehand. Some of it will come up as you are writing, and you say, "Oh, I need to check this." So you do research on that. So in my case, because it is a historical fiction to some extent, it's also a contemporary fiction, by the way. So you need to do research as you go along. You also need to do research. And then you draw upon memories, in some cases, how memories trigger off ideas. The plot comes to you, triggered off by memories. I see a photo. I saw a photo of my mother coming out of the Ganges in Banaras. There are 6 chapters on Banaras, by the way.
Right.
Which I know is sacred to the Nepalese also. And there is a scene in my novel, and there are some, turning points, narrative uses of also all of this. So I had seen just this photograph. And then from that photograph of her with her hair open, in water, half in water, you conjure up many things. So, yes, I think it's a very exciting and fluid world, isn't it? And an experience. Because, and the epiphanies that come, respond to them, even if it is at 2 a.m. at night. I would suddenly get some fevered idea about, what I should do with a particular character. I should make her die now, or I should,
It happens constantly.
Exactly. So suddenly that idea comes, then I get up and, at 2 o'clock at night, start writing furiously and putting down that, not to lose. And sometimes when I've been lazy and not got up, I've lost it the next day, because those epiphanies are like dreams. They come, and then sometimes you remember, sometimes you don't.
Right. Ms. Puri, I really enjoy talking with you and talking about your book.
Thank you. I did too. Thank you.
And thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me on your podcast. And I hope my Nepalese friends, particularly young people, I want to say this, although I'm not young, but apart from, I'm young at heart, and full of energy and positive energy. This book is for young people, by young people, and of young people. So do read it. It is about how young people then found themselves, reimagined themselves, their country, their societies. That's also a very important part of the social change aspect of this novel, how young people are agents of social change, whether it is on caste, whether it is on gender, these young people become agents of that. But also it's a fun book. So do enjoy reading it. Very dramatic. And you were asking me about my plans. One of my current preoccupations is to get this made into a web series.
Oh, wow. Interesting. Yeah.
Yes, and I am in negotiations on this.
Wonderful. We wish you good luck for that. And as far as I understand, the book is available in Amazon India, right?
Amazon India, yes.
Yes. I request my audience to order a copy, and it's a lovely book. I enjoyed. I haven't finished entirely, but I have gone through almost half now and read a lot of reviews of it. And I wish you good luck with your web series as well as the new project as well. Thank you so much for your time once again, Ms. Puri.
I hope to come to Nepal sometime soon, because I've been going around India launching this book. So I hope sometime I'll be able to come to Nepal as well, Kathmandu, where I've spent 7 precious years to come back and rediscover it and also launch my book there.
Please do come. We're happy to welcome you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.